Your soul loves you so much. Can you break that down for me? Because people are going, wait a second, my soul loves me. Huh?
You are so very loved. And I believe it is the lack of awareness of this that is causing the pain and chaos in our world right now. One of the prayers my guides gave me was, "Forgive me for ever thinking I was anything less than love." As we forgive ourselves and become love in full expression, we'll see less chaos in our personal lives, and our world will reflect that.
Is it hard to get out of the I'm here to do this?
Let me tell you, it was hard until the teaching I got yesterday from my Susan on the day of the eclipse, which I find out is all about.
Are you ready to shine? Shine bright. Woohoo! Hi, everyone. Welcome back. I'm Michael Sandler, your host on Inspire Nation. If you've ever wondered if you're only human or how to interact with higher consciousness, then do we have the Awakened Way show for you. Today, I'll be talking with a dear friend, considered one of the world's most influential, spiritually influential living people, say that 10 times fast, and the most amazing author, teacher, and messenger of hope about her latest brilliant work, The Awakened Way. And that's just what I want to talk with her about today, about what it means to wake up, interact with higher consciousness, and live a life that's anything but just human. Plus, specific exercises before the end to connect with the higher realm. So welcome back to the show, Suzanne. Are you ready to shine?
Always, Michael, especially when I get around you.
Woohoo! So before we dive right into things, is humanity evolving?
Oh, yes. Even if it seems like we're going through chaos, that's part of it, isn't it? You learn from your mistakes, you grow from your errors. So I'm not worried.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. And this is a zinger from your book, of course. Would you say we're only human, or are we all God?
Oh, we are God in expression, but not all of God. That's boy, splitting hairs is so important. Languaging is so important. And that's part of my mission, is to get us to see how our word choice and our thoughts about what we say all the time affect us. Are they true or not? So we are the all in expression, but we are not all of the all.
What does that mean then, if you don't mind me asking, in expression?
Well, I could just sit here and go like this, and I'm just being, but that would get a little boring after a while. So if I am pure being, I want to have an experience. So I have to manifest that experience. And so I express myself through activity, through energy. And that energy carries information. And the more dense it gets, the more physical it appears. Here we are.
Very cool. Did you do anything special for the eclipse? Because I know this will be evergreen, but we're recording this the day after the solar eclipse.
Well, my husband put a little hole in a box and it wasn't real impressive. So we said, oh, boring. We took our dogs to the dog park, noticed that the sky was a little eerie, and in walks a guy and said, "Did you see the eclipse?" And we said, not really. And he handed us a pair of special glasses, and I just about fell over when I looked at the glasses. So that was fun.
Very, very cool. So I want to go back in time. We're not going to go to your whole story, but we will do a few key punctuation marks. And you really blew things out in this book, The Awakened Way. Can you tell us what was your experience? And I'm talking about the Pentagon here, where you said, that's it. I've held everything together. It is time for a new phase in my life.
Well, the that's it moment came a few weeks after 9/11. I was there hours after the Pentagon was hit. A few hours before that, I flew over Manhattan and watched the billowing smoke come up. We were in the last aircraft in the air after everybody else was grounded. We being me and my boss, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. So we got to the Pentagon and stepped over jet engine pieces in the grass, stared at that gaping hole. It was like a movie set, but the brain had a hard time conceiving that was real. So you can imagine what happened in the few days afterwards. That was bad enough as they were searching for bodies, and we just continued going to our office on the other side of the building while it was still on fire. But it was when they started putting up memorials to the people who had passed, and you saw these 189 faces of colleagues on memorial boards throughout the building, and you just say, these are normal people like us. And the defining point that you asked about for me was when they handed out gas masks and taught us how to use them in case we needed to use them at our desk. And Michael, I just pulled out my uniform, my Navy commander's uniform. I wanted to see if it still fit, and it did. And in the bag, the clothing bag with my uniform and my insignia, was this folded up piece of paper. And I opened it up, and it was my typed up checklist for things to do on my very last day in the Navy. And right there, number 3 was turn in gas mask. Oh my God.
Oh my God. Well, I've got to back you up. I've got hairs standing on end is the best way to describe it, because we live in a feeling, breathing universe. What was that feeling sensation when you put the uniform back on?
Oh, when I put it back on, it was so constricting. It took my breath away. I'm so proud of my uniform, and I got back to that feeling of pride. But at first, to have this buttoned up to here and to put a tie on, and then the black navy blues jacket, it's beautiful and it's dignified, but it was so stiff. Oh, now I know why they had me wear this top. And you should see the flowery pants I have on at the bottom. I'm going to show you. We went out to dinner after we did the photos with me in the uniform. And I put this outfit on to counterbalance that. I mean, the pictures are just beautiful with that uniform. You can't deny that a military uniform is impressive.
Oh, yeah.
And again, very proud of it. But that's not who I am anymore. And I'm not just talking about like this. I'm talking about inside I flow.
And your shirt, we'll call that your blouse, we'll call that the uniform du jour here, has this openings down the arms, which to me imply spaciousness, breath, rather than that constriction.
You're absolutely right. Yeah.
Can I segue? There are several places. Okay, I'm going to go there. Let's just touch base there for a brief moment, because then I want to go to where you're at now. Would you mind sharing, and I've asked it before, so we can just touch base briefly. What happened? So you got out, you go sailing with your husband, Ty, who is a naval destroyer commander. Is that correct?
Captain, yeah.
Captain. And then what happened?
We didn't just go sailing. I mean, we took off the next day in our sailboat and cruised for several years. That was our life. We had this plan. Boy, we sold the house, we sold the cars, we went off into the sunset. And when you said I want to know how it felt, you said I want to know how it felt to put your uniform on. I thought you were going to say, how did it feel to be there on 9/11, to turn in the gas mask? And I'll tell you, I couldn't tell you how it felt, because at that point in my life, I was an expert at stuffing down my feelings. So I did a lot of shaking, but that's because the emotions were trying to get out.
Let's go there then, because I talk about coming to closure, about being able to go back into the experience and go through the experience to heal. I'm guessing you did just that. And then how did that feel?
I don't know that I ever went back specifically and healed the 9/11 experience. And as I tune into it, I don't feel I need to. I feel that I've really come to terms with that. It's, my guys.
Isn't that interesting, right?
They just grabbed me and said, it's because that experience happened as an adult. And the wounds we truly need to heal are much deeper and come from before 7 years old. So I gained coping tools as an adult, and that was not deeply embedded in my psyche, like other wounds that have reared their ugly heads and I've worked on more. Interesting.
And we'll get to those in a minute. So we're sailing for a couple years until...
we sailed across the Atlantic Ocean, which was a major check in the block milestone as sailors and adventurers. And we're sailing around the Mediterranean, which sounds absolutely idyllic. It's actually kind of challenging lifestyle because you're always out in the weather, as a sailor. But it was still pretty fun and interesting until we got to Croatia. This was 2006, so we didn't have cell phones on the boat. We didn't have internet on the boat at all. We got emails in a burst transmission across our single sideband radio, ancient technology, but at the time, amazing technology. And we got this burst of emails this one day when we were anchored off of an island, and it said phone home. There wasn't even a phone around. We had to wait till the next day till we found an island with a payphone. That one day put us one day later getting home to my stepdaughter's funeral. That's what that phone call was about. So, they couldn't even find us, Michael. I don't think I've shared this publicly because of the lack of communications. Yeah. They had to find us by tracking down the last time we used an ATM in Croatia. Yeah, used our bank cards. I don't know, somebody in the government tracked us down because my stepdaughter was a Marine. That was pretty clever. Yeah. And so now I couldn't run away from that. And these were feelings. I remember being at Susan's funeral and going in the car, in the lead car. You don't want to be in the lead car at a funeral, right? And there with my husband and Susan's biological mother. And I was just shaking like I'd never shaken before because I was trying to hold it together for my husband. And again, when you block emotions, they have to come out somehow.
Thank you for sharing. What's fascinating to me and what I love so much, and I've shared to so many people before, is you took all of your training and learning is maybe the correct term, your super sleuthing, your desire to find an answer. And at some point you cracked, you snapped, you said, oh, hell no, I am going to connect with Susan. I am going to find her.
I didn't even know she could be found until I saw her body at the funeral. That was the moment when my awareness cracked wide open. There must be this thing called a soul. So that was the moment when it was, okay.
How did she start coming through to you?
You and I haven't talked in a while. And I believe it's since we talked, she came to me last year or so and said, I held back for a long time. I said, yeah, you did. It took me a lot longer than I thought it would to connect with you. And she said, you weren't supposed to connect with me right away. If you had connected with me right away, you would have stopped. That would have been it. Mission accomplished. Susan, let's just keep going. But instead, because I hadn't heard from her, I stayed with the daily sitting and looking and listening for Susan. And in that time when she didn't show up, boy, did I hone the ability to tune into a lot more across the veil than Susan. So it was part of a plan. And that's a message I'd love to dive into later about why commitment is important when we don't always know the big picture.
And to me, thank you for sharing. It's, I call, and it's interesting because you talk about it with, I'm going to get some of the lead characters in the book, the Norse god,
Odin.
Odin transforms into a dear friend of yours, which transforms, I think, into another. And the universe is the universe. It's if one person comes through, then it's another, but it is the same field of everything. And I call this field of everything. I had a dog, Pumpkin, that was 2/3 coyote for 17 years. I call the universe coyote energy. The universe sends you on your path and gives you what you need to step forward, not what you need to say, oh, I'm just living a good, happy life.
But it was stunning because I sat looking for her. I didn't realize I was training myself to discern subtle energy, to notice how the mind works.
Is that what you would call living an awakened life?
No, but that's one of the ingredients. So what I call living an awakened life is realizing what you were saying earlier, that we are all of these expressions of coyote energy. We are all source, playing, experiencing ourselves as these roles, our stories. That's the realization. But then to live that way is to say, well, this means I'm not only human. And you start to see the web of connections with non-physical beings and other realities. And you make that part of your everyday in wondrous ways and normal ways to such a point that you'd never want to go back. Trust me, I don't want to go back to sleepy behavior. It's constricting, like putting the uniform back on. I don't want to in any way say there's something wrong with wearing any uniform. There's a purpose for that. There's a time for that. So, but for me, that's not my role anymore.
And let us take that one step forward, further. We send love. It doesn't matter who you are, what you are, your station in life. And everything can be a beautiful station, and everything can be coming from the most heartfelt, heart-centered, source-connected place. It's just that once you get, and you could be fully awakened, you could be fully enlightened, whatever that means in uniform. It's beautiful.
Oh, yeah. I have a friend who's an Air Force colonel. She just got promoted to colonel. She's one of the most woo-woo people I know, and she's finding that perfect balance. I love it.
When you loosen that constriction, when you see more, feel more, whatever more, you can't ever undo that, though, could you?
Say that another way, Michael. I don't get it.
Once you begin living an awakened way, there is no way back into the tight uniform. This is metaphorical.
Yeah, I get it. But I do feel that we slip back quite easily, get drawn into the drama. The difference is we notice it now, and you don't want to stay back there. Yeah, I still have my very human moments, trust me, but it feels, just the other day, I was on the internet with an airline for an hour and a half. You know the frustration.
Oh, no.
Really bad. With customer service, it was bad. And just then I got a call back from another company where I was trying to buy some audio gear. And I said the most snarky thing to the clerk on the phone. It was so not me. And I immediately caught myself and I said to him, oh my God, I don't talk like that. I am so sorry. And I said, I just got off an hour and a half with an airline. And his response just hurt my heart. He said, that's okay. It's part of my job to be the whipping boy for everybody. And I said, no, that's not part of your job. It's part of my job to help people not do that to you. And I just blew it. So yes, we don't go back, but we do have our moments.
I can remember 7, 8, 10 years ago, I was on this path, and I was going to coach a rabbi of all things in Brooklyn, New York. And I went through the toll from, I don't know, Verrazano Bridge, some bridge. I don't think it was even called that anymore. And the Easy Pass light flashed red, and I stopped because it didn't go green. And the person behind me started laying on the horn, and then yelled something foul-mouthed. And finally, I drove through, and I'm sweating, and I flipped him the bird. And then I pulled over and I cried because I had forgotten to come from the heart.
So one of the tools is to realize that we control what I call the human spirit dial. And when we flip the bird, that's human 100%. So we find the balance. Maybe we go meditate and, find some gratitude, and then just try to live right there in the center, balanced. We're going to go back and forth. We are human for the experience, but once you awaken, hey, let's keep it a little bit more that way.
Yes. So would you mind, you were telling me before we went on air that Ty had been, and that's your dear husband, had been triggering you, which to me means helping you to learn certain lessons that you didn't know were buried underneath. Would you mind sharing a little bit about that and how you've gone through this?
Oh, sure. And I've alluded already to the fact that I wasn't allowed to feel less than positive feelings. That's my teaching from my mother, not from Ty.
Yeah.
And I have realized from the very beginning of this spiritual journey that the ones we live with are here to push our buttons. It's part of their role. And when this whole recent episode unfolded with Ty, I could really see his soul's hand in this, that we may think people are young souls or old souls, but maybe they took on the role of button pusher, and all souls there's no age to the soul. The soul is a light being. So this dear old soul husband of mine for years expresses his very strong opinions in a very adamant way. And his face, I don't even want to make it. It gets just tight and angry looking. And I remember one time saying, well, why are you so angry? And he looked at me and he said, I'm not angry. I don't want to bring that energy in. And I said, then what do you call this? And he just looked at me because he didn't have a word for it. So there might be an issue there with feeling feelings as well. But what triggered me recently was he brought up a subject that I had asked him. I said, I want to flow with everything, but if there's one subject I ask you to never talk about, don't talk about that subject. And he brought it up. And then he had that face, and I lost it. I lost it in a really big way. And for the first time in the 30 years we've known each other, I accused him of being a word that has never come out of my mouth in relation to him. And he looked at me and he said, what did you just say? And I knew I had crossed a boundary. That's that human side. But I continued to be all wound up. I had to come up here to my sanctuary and use every tool in my metaphysical toolbox.
Yeah.
And I finally asked my guides, what was that all about? They didn't tell me immediately, but as often happens, they awakened me at 3 a.m. because I went to bed and said, you have to teach me what is the lesson here. And I got up, and the connecting the dots, synchronicities, signs of things that had led up to this in the previous week or two were so stunning until I had this aha moment. And it was that from before 7 years old, my mother would give us kids what we called the look. She didn't have to hit us, which as parents from our parents' age, she would do from time to time. And that was normal discipline. She didn't have to hit us. She just had to give me the look. And because I wasn't allowed to show anger or anything, I stuffed it down. So I didn't realize that all these years, Ty's face was really to get me to look at the emotions that brought about. Since that realization, he's done nothing to trigger me. And it's not a conscious thing he ever did. I just knew from that moment it wasn't going to happen again. I haven't even seen that look on his face. It's stunning how spirit does its best to help us heal.
I like that. Are you feeling now calmer and more at peace?
I usually feel calm and at peace. I always did, but there were those moments. So what I'm actually feeling now, Michael, is everything. I'm so much more sensitive to feeling. And as you may have heard, this spiritual journey is not about feeling better. It's about feeling better. And so I'm getting better at feeling. And this is resulting in my mediumship clarity increasing beautifully because I'm feeling the very subtle stuff as it comes up now, not just this stuff, but let me be really transparent with you, Michael. We have a glass of wine every night. sometimes I'll have a glass and a half. I can't drink too much ever since I've tuned into spirit world. I'm very sensitive. But what's stunning me is up to 5 times a day, now that I'm aware, noticing this very subtle thought, ooh, how long till I can have that glass of wine? Whoa. I mean, that's not alcoholism. That's just, there is, a little stress or a little bit of feeling in me after doing an interview like this. And my thought before was subconsciously, is it 5 o'clock yet? And now I'm even noticing that, but noticing how frequent it is, it's like, that's a coping mechanism. What happens if I pay attention to this? And now that I am, even that is going away. It's stunning.
I have that same thing with, it's going to sound so trite in a sense, but movies. I've got my daughter playing, she's literally playing outside of the studio right now, 23 months of age. But wait, maybe I'll just watch a minute or two of this movie and not be with my daughter. But the and not be with my daughter has become that realization of wait a second. Why is it that you're wanting this? And as soon as you put the and not being with my daughter, you're like, oh, heck no.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's the feeling everything.
It is. And just the insights from spirit about, again, getting back to the words I was talking about earlier. We talk about positive feelings and negative feelings, and we don't want to feel the negative feelings. But it was funny. Where's my little prop here? Here it is. I looked down, and here I have a battery. And this has a positive end and a negative end. And when we talk about emotions, negative is bad. But on a battery, negative is just the opposite of that end. But it's having the two opposites that allows the flow of energy. So when we don't balance our positive emotions with what I previously called and considered negative emotions that I don't want to feel, we literally block the flow. So my guide said, change the words. It's positive energies and not positive energies.
You even have a quote in the book, I think it's from Edison, about electricity is. We don't need to judge it. The energy just is. So A, what are we going to do with the energy? And B, if you've got a blockage, I'll pull out my prop here. Can you? This is a nice little snow globe with a smiling shark in it. Can we look at it rather than call it negative or positive? Oh, Sharky smiling at me. But can we look at and observe that energy?
Yeah. And that's the second part of the teaching that actually goes hand in hand with one of the exercises I wanted to share with you at whatever point it's appropriate, is that now when I notice a not so positive feeling or emotion bubbling up, I look at it as the observer, and that's the shift that we learn to do when we live in Awakened Way, shift from experiencer to observer. And I use a phrase my guides taught me over a decade ago. Isn't that interesting? Now I'm not judging it, but they gave me part 2, the follow-on to Isn't That Interesting? I appreciate the fullness of this experience. Now there's the gratitude. I may not be grateful for this not so positive feeling, but I can appreciate that it's part of my wholeness. And now we have flow.
I'd love to know that exercise now. This is a beautiful time. I will say that line, I appreciate the fullness, to me cancels out the victim nature. Why me? Poor me? How could this be happening to me? It's gone. If anything, we recognize the gift and beauty of it, even if it doesn't feel it at the moment.
Oh my gosh, yes. I mean, I look back on that incident with Ty. You should see how our relationship has improved since then.
Did you wake him in the middle of the night or wait till the morning?
Oh, no, there was too much learning going on in the middle of the night. And it took me a couple of days till I shared all of it with him. But I realized later by things he said to me that my using that word in reference to him, I didn't say you are, I just said, now you're acting like, and it jolted him so badly that he actually looked at some behaviors. So, to have gone through that pain, that's the gift. Would I want to do that again? No. And that's how we grow, right?
So would you mind sharing that? It seems like a good time. Then we'll dive more back into story. Would you mind sharing that exercise with me? And I hear it sounds like Hannah Bear is at the door. I'm going to see if she does a jailbreak in here during the interview to say hi.
I can't believe she's 23 months already, but yeah, it's another acronym. I like to teach in acronyms. I haven't counted how many acronyms are in the book, but one of the quickest acronyms is we're trying to clear out our own BS. Remember that one?
Yes.
Stands for belief system. What do you think it stood for, right? So this acronym is a way of remembering a process we can use when we're triggered. And that doesn't mean big off your rocker, lose your balance trigger. Any triggering that makes you want to go have that glass of wine or eat that brownie or go watch a movie instead of being with your loved ones. You're triggered by something. You use what I call the no fault method, where no fault are 7 steps to processing that emotion in a way that you may not ever even have to deal with it again. How awesome is that? And you do it yourself. It's so funny, Michael, a little backstory on this.
Yeah.
That when I was given this acronym, no fault, by my guides, I thought, isn't there like a no fault divorce? Let me look up what that means. And I Googled it, and then I went off to write something. And I remember saying, hey, Ty, if you happen to go by my computer screen, that's for work. Don't take it personally. I'm not having any thoughts here of doing anything silly. But what it is when you become triggered, because these uncomfortable, not so positive emotions feel so opposite of what we become used to feeling, the happiness, the joy, the peace, when we're living in an awakened way, we notice it. So that takes awareness. But you set the intention to be aware of these feelings and you start to notice them. So you notice it. That's N. The O stands for observe it. And that's the necessary shift to get you out of the human experience and take on the more spacious, higher perspective of the soul, which we are right now. So it's just a shift. And I'm observing, look what is being felt here. And then the F in no fault is feel it. Instead of saying, oh my God, I don't want this pain, you literally feel it in your body. And from the observer's standpoint, you can be objective and say, wow, that's tightness in my chest, or I feel a clenching in my gut, or I'm breathing more rapidly, or, I just don't like this feeling, but you're feeling it instead of denying it. The A is acknowledge that it's okay to have that feeling because you are human, but you're not only human. So you acknowledge, okay, this is part of my human experience. But now comes your self-therapy part here. The U is uncover the wound that triggered it. We may not always discern that immediately, but maybe make a note and take it into meditation with you. Guides, what caused that at that moment? But really often it's as simple as, I've been working at my computer for 3 hours. I'm stressed. I haven't been breathing deeply. And it triggered me to want to go binge on cookies. So I've uncovered it's stress related. So that's a U. Then the
would
L,
uncover be, as an example, Ty is giving you the scrunched up tight face.
That's a big.
But it's actually mom.
Right. That was one I hadn't uncovered until just a few weeks ago. So that was so deep that it took all this machinations from the spirit world to show me in a big way.
Yeah.
The L in no fault is now just love yourself unconditionally. And that may be challenging for people at work at first, but you're already observing yourself from the soul level, and the soul loves you so much. So once you start to become objective, the T in no fault is what allows you to start loving yourself. talk to yourself lovingly. Tell yourself you're safe. Tell yourself, okay, you made a mistake. You talk to yourself like a nurturing parent, if you had nurturing parents, or if you were to have nurturing parents, would talk to yourself. And then talk to yourself with the phrases like, isn't that interesting? I appreciate the fullness of this experience. And by this time, you've gone through the 90 seconds it takes to metabolize the physical and emotional effects of less than positive emotions. If we continue to give them power, they'll continue. But if we observe them and breathe and step back, they just flow through us. So it's this most perfect process for allowing the fullness until we no longer even need to process those emotions, and they don't come up as often, if at all.
Thank you. What I love about that, and we'll go to sailing here, is every wave passes. If we recognize, and I mean, I don't know what would happen if you tried to hold on to the wave, but that's what we do with quote unquote negative emotions. But if you go through this, and I love going through this no fault process, the wave shall pass.
And we're afraid of that. I had a conversation with my dear friend Irene on the way to a workshop I was teaching this weekend. And she said that when she was in the throes of grief over her daughter's passing, she would panic when the grief came up because it was so frightening. So she shoved it down. And so she was afraid to meditate. I never realized that is one of the reasons people don't even like to do my 3-minute sip of the divine, because I was never afraid of what would come up in the silence. I guess I'd done a really good job of shoving it down, but she was afraid that if she got quiet, then that awful grief would come up, until finally she was suffering so badly. She just said, I surrender. I give up. I'll try meditating. And the grief came up and she looked at it and she said it was like poof, like the wave. It just passed through, and she went, well, that wasn't so bad. And then she found the peace that meditation offers. Didn't mean the grief stopped, but now she was no longer afraid of it.
That sounds like, I'm going to use your term here, an awakened way. You are now more of that higher observer of the grief rather than the one participating in it.
Yeah. And she's a joyous person now, vice president of helpingparentsheal.org, helping others to find a peace. So progress is absolutely available to all of us.
Thank you. You said something interesting earlier. And I was going to ask you about what is our soul and what is our human nature, but you specifically said, and we can still do that, your soul loves you so much. Can you break that down for me? Because people are going, wait a second, my soul loves me. Huh?
The soul is the formless part of you that decided to take on this role in human form. So if you're an actor going on a stage and you don't like your role, you quit. You know, find me an actor that just doesn't love putting on that costume and acting out this role, knowing it's a role. That's a human way of looking at it, just a metaphor. But the soul is beyond the filter of the brain that causes us to feel separation. The left hemisphere of the brain is actually programmed to feel separate. The soul doesn't have a brain. It is an energy pattern of this beautiful consciousness, awareness, light, whatever you want to call it. The soul knows only love. It's only when it gets into the role in its more restricted patterns that it then acts out in all of the human ways. So the soul is constantly nudging us on this path towards awakening. It's like a flower that comes up through a crack in the cement. We are just naturally drawn towards the light, and our soul is much closer to the light than we are while in a body.
Thank you. Why do you think we came here into our, I'm going to call it human amnesia? I Freudian slipped. Human nature. I call it an amnesic state. Why do you think we came here to forget our true nature, to experience our human nature?
I don't feel we came here to forget at all. I feel it's a byproduct of having a bihemispheric brain. And I feel the soul knew that, because when we came here, just like your beautiful daughter, at first she only knew total unity and love and connection because the left hemisphere brain cells were not fully developed. And as they develop, 23 months, you're about to go into the terrible twos, as she's about to suddenly understand, oh, there's a me and a you. I'm going to exert my separate authority.
Oh,
and
she's got that.
We get so drawn into our left brain activities that we just give them more power than we do to the right brain that still and always knows flow and connection. So this path is not necessarily about remembering. It's about, like the book says, making the shift to a divinely guided life. It's about shifting back from so much left brain human stuff to right brain soul flow, and then finding the balance so we experience wholeness. The soul didn't come here to forget and remember. That's a byproduct. The soul came here for the fullness of the experience. Like I said, it just gets a little stagnant, just being. You can't deny the joy that comes from the opposites. The joy my husband and I are experiencing now that we've solved one of these great big areas of conflict. I could go on and on with examples, but I know everybody watching and listening has their own.
You were just mentioning Hannah Bear. And because of that, I don't know if she knocked on the door or what just took place.
A break-in.
But yes, the break-in has occurred. She is in Mama Bear's arms. She is thinking about it. Would you like to say hi to our special friend?
I saw you about a year ago, right? So let's see how she's grown. But I've seen you on air.
Remember Suzanne? Would you like to say hi? There's Suzanne. Do you want to say hi? She's thinking about it.
Okay.
We will see. If so, there is absolutely no pressure, but if so, oh, is that a unicorn you're wearing right now? A giraffe. Oh, I like your giraffe.
The second time I've heard giraffe today. I wonder what's up with that.
So giraffe is the tallest land creature. So the giraffe sees from the highest point of view, period.
Okay. There we go.
There is none taller.
Neck out. Yeah.
So she is seeing from a highest perspective. Well, we shall continue until Honey Bear is ready, or Honey Bear is ready. And if so, we shall bring her on. Maybe I get to ask right now, what is an NOE moment?
Oh, an NOE moment. I don't call it a no. I just call it an NOE moment, another acronym. And it stands for a no other explanation, experience, or moment when you cannot deny there is a greater reality. I love to use this as an icebreaker when I do workshops in person, because you know how group dynamics are. And people, when they come to my events, they expect to have a loving experience, and it's wonderful. We have a beautiful community, but there's still a little bit of awkwardness. So we break the ice by having people get in groups of 2 or 3 and share their own NOEs, no other explanation moments, because everybody has them. And that just helps us celebrate that we're part of something so much greater.
Thank you. So would you mind sharing about Odin and You Are a Myth? Because to me, this was a huge NOE moment in your life.
It truly was. And I remember as it was unfolding thinking, oh, I can't share this with anybody. I'll alienate anybody who follows me. They'll think I've gone off the deep end. Yeah. But I was in meditation and felt a very powerful masculine presence step in. And when I say step in, merge their energy field with mine, just like when I do a reading. But this was beyond any human being who I normally connect with when I help people connect with loved ones. I normally don't see faces, but I saw a man's face that looked like Moses, long, scraggly, white beard, white hair, wrinkled face. And I asked him, "Who are you?" And he replied, "Odin." And at the time, Michael, all I remember is I've heard that name. Is he like some character in a book? Who is that? I really didn't know, and I hadn't studied him ever. And so being an evidence-based spirit communicator, I said, well, tell me all about you. And I have my little notebook there, and in meditation, I picked up my pen, and he told me all kinds of things about him, including, now I knew I was losing it. He said, well, I had a flying horse, and he told me that he took up runes, runes, divination stones, told me several other things about himself. But at one point, I even went, oh, I got a stabbing pain in my torso. So after he gave me some teaching that I wrote down, I went and Googled him and was stunned to find out he's the Norse god.
Yeah.
The all-father of the Norse gods in Norse mythology. He was pierced in the side with a spear right where I went out in this epic poem where he discovered runes, runes,
yeah.
and he had a flying horse in the mythological story. So I go back into meditation.
Yep.
And I said, please come back to me. I have a few questions. And my first question was, are you real? And he replied immediately, feeling exactly like he did before, that powerful presence. He said, as real as you are, but not human. I'm digesting this, and I said, but you're a myth. And without even a second going by, he replied, you are a myth. I hope that causes everybody who ever hears a story or reads it in my book to stop and say, wait a minute, because I'm talking with this being. I'm having a conversation and I can feel him. And the book talks a lot about the fact that we live our lives through our stories. And what is a story? A sequence of experiences that together make up the story of you. We can't have a life without a story. It's a continuous linking together of sensations, thoughts, and feelings that make up experiences, that make up events, that make up a life. So we are souls living out stories. What is a soul? A being of light. Doesn't have to have a human form. Animals have souls. Trees have souls. So here is this soul communicating with me that is living out a story. It was fascinating and definitely food for thought.
And how does that relate? And to take this NOE to its mind-blowing conclusion, what does this have to do with dogs' names?
So I hadn't heard from Odin in a while. He had some phenomenal teaching for me that is part of all of my teaching today about consciousness and what is real. He came back to me. I'm in meditation, hadn't thought about him in several weeks. I'd called on him a few more times, got more evidence that I found online about him later. But he came back unbidden. And I said, oh, Odin, I'm surprised to see you. And he looked at me and he said, who was your stepdaughter Susan's dog? Now, see, that's clever. That's creative. That's not coming from my mind to have somebody ask you like a riddle, a question like that. And I said, well, her dog was, oh my God, her dog was Thor. Thor was Odin's son. Yeah, that's how he asked it. He said, who was my son? And I said, your son was Thor, because I had looked him up, right? I looked up Odin after he came through. And that's when he said, who was your stepdaughter's dog? And that was an OMG moment. My stepdaughter, who was struck by lightning, that's how she died, had named her dog, brand new puppy just a few months before she was killed, Thor, the Norse god of thunder and lightning.
That brings us, I believe his name was Wolf, was someone whose parents came to you who is also struck by lightning, which is, let's be honest, that's rare, much more likely to win the lottery than you are to be struck by lightning. But both of these imply, and there's a picture of him in your book. Hopefully, I'm not giving away the book, with him wearing a T-shirt with a lightning bolt on it, and really knowing what was just about. And I think he said to his friends, "I gotta go," and he meant, "I gotta go." But
He
this
cut
implies,
out that lightning bolt from the shirt and tacked it to the wall the night before he was struck by lightning. It was his favorite shirt. And he tacked it across the room facing a poem that described what was about to happen to him. So, wow.
See, this implies with both Wolf, this implies with your daughter-in-law, that there is a prescience and an understanding, goes beyond time, goes beyond our human nature, goes beyond everything that we know.
It's called the soul, and the soul is a direct expression of source. It's just like a lightning bolt. You have source, and it just has to express itself, so the light bursts forth into different tracks, and along the way, it's closer to the light. That's the soul, and down here at the tip, here we are at our densest form.
So you mentioned that Odin has been teaching you, and I'm interested to glean what's the most interesting, if you can remember that. You said he's been teaching you about consciousness and what is real. Now you've been at this game for quite a while, so you already know, I'll put that in quotes, but you know quite a bit. Where has he been going with you?
Well, there's two stories. One of them is going to be in my book that comes out next year, so I won't tell you that one. But the one that's
fair enough,
the great teaching that I can absolutely share with you now, that I believe is in the book, that I had a moment when Odin appeared to me, and in the next moment morphed into Susan. And it was my stepdaughter, without a doubt. We had a conversation, then it morphed back into Odin, then it morphed back, and I said, Susan, have you been acting as Odin all along? Is it just you tricking me? And she said, no. It's all malleable. That's the point, Suzanne. It's all of us, it being source, the light consciousness. It's you and me and Odin and Jesus and Wolf and Archangel Michael. It's all source morphing into each other so quickly, moment by moment. We appear to be separate. We appear to be in time, but it's source expressing itself. This is the point. She says it's like a symphony, and we're all players in the symphony. Where you place your focus is what you experience. She said, can you get off center stage now and realize you are part of the entire symphony? You're the
that is the expression, and bringing us full circle. And then I've got to go to one of the simplest and most profound expressions. I believe it's at the very beginning of the Bible. I am.
That's it. That's everything after those two words is story. What is a myth? A story that carries a message, has meaning, leads to learning. That's what Odin meant when he said, you are a myth. We are the I am, living out a story for a purpose, for messages and sharing and learning and growth and the experience of it.
So can you share, what is an A team? Do we all have an A team? And if you don't mind really sharing, who's your A team? And it's probably not Mr. T.
No, not Mr. T. The A team is a term that I learned from Dr. Gary Schwartz, an afterlife researcher at the University of Arizona. And he took me into his lab and said, I've been working with several spirits across the veil who are helping him to develop technology to communicate with spirits. And he said, let's see who you can discern. He didn't tell me anything about them. And I brought through 7 people who were very well known before they passed. And it shocked me that I was getting evidence from them. And it was very clear they're helping all of us, helping humanity. And he said, well, they're the A team for his technology, meaning the above team that's helping us. And then anybody that's helping at this level is the B team below. Yep. And it's not that we're lower, it's just a more dense frequency. But yeah, we all have an A team. We all have guides. We're all connected to angels. Our loved ones across the veil are part of our A team. And the B team is all of your community here. It's just the most comforting knowing that we can pass along to others, that we're never alone. Yes, you're given your privacy, but you also have limitless assistance.
Is there a way to most easily either discern who is our A team or to call them in?
Believe that you have them. Be willing to play, which you certainly are. And that means to have this wondrous what if attitude and just say, I'm going to call out for help. I'm going to ask for assistance. I'm going to talk to you from my heart and trust that some member of my A team will assist me in whatever special requests and not so special requests I make, if it's in the greatest and highest good. That sounds like a prayer. That was a lot of words. You could just say, I want to trust that you're here. How are you going to make yourself known to me? Open up a dialogue. This is a big part of the Awakened Way book, is how to interact with your A team. And once you do, it is just fun. You realize that you really are being helped, and they show up in wondrous ways.
Thank you. That brings us to, would you mind sharing? We're going to go to a few tools here. Would you mind sharing a few of the 7 steps of connecting with higher consciousness?
That's another acronym, and it's Bless Me. And it stands for breathe. The breathing would be excellent to use before the no fault moment, no fault practice. When you notice you're off balance, just take that nice deep breath. But every meditation, if you start with a very special type of breathing that I teach about in the book, it will just calm you instantly and drop you into the optimal brainwave state for connecting with our A team. But you don't have to go into a meditative state to just lift your vibration. That's the L. Various tools for doing that. Expand your awareness from only human awareness. That's BLE. S is surrender your identification as only human, and then make that critical shift. It's just a shift in focus, like shifting a spotlight, shifting from experiencer to observer, shifting with intention to a connection at the heart with some member of the A team. And then M stands for merge. Like when Odin stepped into my field, that was merging with me. So we've given them this higher energy that we've created through the blessing steps. And now we invite them into blend with us. And the final E is experience and engage. It's 2 E's now, but experience whatever happens now that you've merged with the higher being. If you really sense someone like I sensed Odin, engage them by saying, who are you? Why are you here? What do I need to know right now? Simple.
You've done a lot of, I'm not sure the exact way to use it, but I'm going to use, I'm sure you've called it this, evidence-based channeling, where you get specific information. In fact, the doctor who you mentioned earlier, there's ways to test that and to test the validity. How do we individually discern, particularly, I'm going to call these the hard ones, yes and no answers from the other side? Because that's where the ego seems to really jump in as quickly as it can.
Yes and no is very simple. Your body gives you yes and no. It requires listening to, paying attention to how your body reacts to everything. So clenching, tightness, lack of flow is a no. Yes is just free flow. So you can just ask yourself questions when you get nice and relaxed and learn to feel the difference. Is my name Michael Sandler? God, the second I say that, my body goes like this, because it's not. If I say, is my name Suzanne Giesemann? I'm already calm. Nothing changed. That's a yes. But you can also ask your A team to give you a special symbol that's yours, that you'll recognize when you ask a yes/no question. Get into a nice expanded state and say, what is going to be our symbol for yes? So when I do a reading, I immediately see that. That's a thumbs up. It just flashes in my mind's eye. That's a yes. And it's very accurate. When I say, what's my symbol for no? I see this. Now that's going to be different for anybody who asks. it's fun to do it in a class and see the different ways their guides, their higher consciousness, their soul, their loved ones, give them a yes and no. And then that's repeated over and over and over. The same symbol comes up, and it's a quick shorthand for getting answers across the veil.
For some reason, the rune and the lightning bolt symbol is popping into my head left and right now. A, what does that mean to you? And then B, maybe it's Susan knocking on the door. What has she been teaching you recently?
The rune lightning bolt symbol is Odin's rune. That of all the runes, he was the one credited with discovering runes. And there are, I think, 24 runes. It's been a while since I've looked at them, or I don't use them very often. But when Odin came to me, he said, see the one shaped like a lightning bolt. And I looked it up, and it was Odin's rune. That's what they call it. So it was perfect.
N-O-E.
And what has Susan been up to lately? Was that the follow-up?
Or what has she been teaching you? Yes.
Just in the last 24 hours, coming through and teaching me how to better sense spirits while I'm teaching a workshop. I get so focused on the students in the class, on the physical world, that I rarely sense the spirits who are around my students. If I were to sit and do a one-on-one reading with them, they're right present in my awareness. But she's just been giving me more teaching, which is my great news for everybody. Doesn't matter where you are in your sensitivity, in your ability to connect with spirit, it just keeps getting better. There's no limit to how well we can connect.
Thank you. Have you been watching the messages, the experience, or is there one thing recently that's been changing with your students?
I would say greater belief that they can do it too, which is most certainly true. There's always been an eagerness to connect, but people are feeling more free to share their understanding, their belief, their ability with others. So it's a beautiful thing that society as a whole is more open to this.
I like that. And particularly as a balance to, if we watch what I'm going to call the NEWS, the negative wordless stimulation that entrenches us into our human nature, forgetting who and what we truly are, that we are starting to express and speak about that more. On that note, what's the BEST method?
Oh, it's a shortcut to the Bless Me method for connecting with higher consciousness. So it's just it addresses once you know what it feels like to make the shift. You don't necessarily have to go through 7 steps. You can breathe and drop immediately into that alpha brainwave state, expand your consciousness with intention and shift, and then just tune in.
Early on, you had said, we'll probably get there later on. I'm not sure if that was about expression of the divine or what that was. Do you recall what that was?
The no fault method, which we did dive into.
Okay, excellent. What does STF mean then?
Well, if you really do another practice in the book, which is called self-inquiry, if you really start questioning who we really are, ask the question in meditation, who am I? And ask, what is the nature of God? All these deeper questions, you start to notice the nature of the mind. You start to notice the nature of reality. And what it comes down to is these physical bodies may appear solid, but we know from science they're not. They are swirling energy at the deepest essence, and deeper than that, it's all awareness, consciousness, the I am. So when you make this discovery, hang on just a second, because I just got snagged and lost the train completely. Why? Stuff. Okay. I'm asking them what that was all about. They completely blanked out my mind, and they did it again. Oh, because without the stuff of life, there's nothing. All there is. Wow, that was almost frightening because it just twice went completely blank. Without the stuff, STF, of life, all there is pure being. So all that we have is mind, awareness, pure being, and experience of mind. So what you saw there was me blanking out to just being this presence, just mind, but without any experience, without any stuff in it. STF stands for sensations, thoughts, and feelings. We experience mind through the stuff of life, sensations, thoughts, and feelings. I can go on because that's a little deep, and that's why I take a whole section of the book to explain it, because this is what we do when we connect with loved ones across the veil. We're tuning into, what am I sensing? What thoughts are arising? What feelings are arising in the shared mind? One shared field, the one mind, arises as your stuff and my stuff. And the reason I know I can tune into your loved ones is because their stuff, their sensations, thoughts, and feelings differ from my stuff. So you learn to just be the one mind and notice what stuff stands out from yours. And that's a loved one.
When you go to speak to someone's loved ones or speak to whomever is around them, do you tune into their stuff? Do you just see them around them? How does that work?
I have been greatly frustrated because I don't see the spirits, but I've come to know that's a gift, because it has required me to tune into the very subtle stuff, sensations, thoughts, and feelings. I see images, I just don't see faces and figures. I see charades, which are incredibly meaningful ways of sharing information. I've just started seeing faces because I have developed the discernment of the other stuff to such a level that I guess I'm allowed now to see. See, if I had only seen spirits before, I would have been happy to say, oh yeah, you have this old lady across the veil. It's probably your grandmother, and she was about this round and had this color hair, and there you go, that's your grandmother. But instead we get the most intricate layers of stuff that's grandma's story. I feel her personality. I merge with her so completely that I might not have done if I had seen her from the start.
So if you're in a class, and I'm not leading the witness here, but if you're in a class or in an interview, is it hard to get out of the I'm here to do this to see, or now see the faces, but before feel those energies?
Let me tell you, it was hard until the teaching I got yesterday from my Susan on the day of the eclipse, which I find out is all about, clearing shadows and getting rid of and starting new ways of doing things. So I'm very excited to see how this is going to translate. She made it very clear to me how to process the shift in a new way while teaching. So I'm sure that we'll be working on that. But it was just not time for me until now. I've done group demonstrations. I just don't usually work them in with workshops. Two very different energies.
Not a thing that you wanted to manifest through this eclipse, but was there we're going to use that word, shift inside of yourself or at a higher level that you are hoping for and already starting to feel?
That's just a continuation of this whole recent new process in my life of feeling the subtle feelings. So I had not equated any of that with the eclipse at all. The eclipse really was a non-event in leading up to it for me. I know a lot of vloggers have been, building up the energy about the eclipse, and I was like, what day is that? To me, every day is high energy. To me, every day is about how can I connect more clearly with spirit. And it was only in retrospect, when this huge teaching from Susan's downloaded on the day of the eclipse, that I heard, now you know why. Pay attention to what eclipses are all about.
Thank you. You have a beautiful space there, and it is a very, I don't know another word, spacious space. What is the importance of clearing physical spaces? Because clearly you have done this.
I have, and I have a whole chapter on energetic hygiene, not just your own chakras and your own energy body, but the physical space. Energy builds up in spaces. You can feel it when you walk into a church. Since this episode with Ty, he has stunned me by wanting to do the sip of the divine regularly, which he never has, my 3-minute process for connecting with spirit. And I encouraged him to go into his study that he really doesn't use that often. Shut the door so the dogs won't be all over his legs, distracting him, and build up energy there by doing that practice in that specific space. So that's why when people come up to this room here and they walk in, even if they're not super sensitive, they just go, whoa, it feels nice in here.
How do I put this? I love you, Ty. Wow.
Wow, huge wow. His soul was just ready. Like, can we get all this button pushing over with so we can just flow more?
Yeah. So what is, if you don't mind sharing, the sip of the divine?
I believe I've done it on your show in the past.
You have. That's this one you have.
Sit in peace. It's a way to overcome the normal human excuses for meditating. I don't have time. Well, it's only 3 minutes. I can't quiet my mind. Well, you're not supposed to. You're just going to watch how the mind works for 3 minutes and ask one question of your 18. What do I need to know now? And then you watch the thoughts and you watch the sensations and you pay attention to the feelings for just 3 minutes. And in that process, you are quieting the mind and you're seeing that you are mind, but it's not necessarily your mind because you're tapping into a greater mind. And that's where your answers come from. It's magical. In fact, the first time he went in to do it, he came back out and I said, that seemed like longer than 3 minutes. He said, it was. It felt so good. I wanted to stay for 6. Yeah.
What is on your mind or on your heart right now? Or what's the most interesting thing that you want to share with people lately?
When I say it just keeps getting better, I feel that's true. I don't have goals anymore other than my overarching goal of being a messenger of hope and serving the greatest good. But I know that at my human level, I don't know what that is. I know that my A team has a bigger picture than I will ever have at this level. I do my best to tap into what the next step is, but I don't have a long range plan. But I was told by a psychic, because it's fun to go to psychics. You get things that you don't get for yourself, right? Even though I am a psychic, we help each other. She said, I see this year like an explosion for you. I should have buckled my seatbelt at the beginning of the year, Michael, because it's just flowing. And the workload, I don't even like to call it work, is I'm just doing my best to keep up with it. But it's so affirming because this is what my soul signed up for, and I'm honored.
I am fascinated, and I completely understand that you're in the driver's seat and you're not. You're on an RV tour with your RV map app out there, but you don't actually know where the RV is going next, and you're being with that.
I mean, I have this Awaken Way just now launching. I have another book on mediumship that's just finished and it comes out in October. Then I've just got an offer for Hay House for another book next year, plus a cruise to the Mediterranean, the Awaken Way cruise to the Mediterranean in the fall that is filling up quickly. Another cruise to the Caribbean next spring, Omega Institute, where it just goes on and on, but it's joy. When I go to do it, spirit just leads the whole thing. I don't have to do the nitpicking planning that I did in the past. And that's the difference, Michael. The more we live this Awakened Way and trust spirit and know that we're being guided, it does make things easier, but it didn't slow the pace down.
It also, going back to that question earlier of discerning yes and no, it sounds like you're making decisions, what decisions you do get to make, based on how does this feel?
Just last week, they said, you've taken on enough major projects. You don't have to say yes to everything. And an hour later, got an amazing offer. And I said, I'm sorry, but that's too much. So it was a big yes to say no. And it's so funny, Michael, that last night we went out to dinner and it was a brand new restaurant and there were 2 items on the menu. I absolutely could not decide. And I thought if I flipped a coin, I tried to say if it came up the meat or the fish, and see how that felt. I was getting nothing. I actually had to ask my guides. They made it so clear, go with the fish. So big things and little things, we can be guided.
Thank you. So that brings us to one last guiding thing. We might do one last exercise. I want to know where we can get everything. Boris books, RVs, and campsites just 10 miles north.
What books? Oh,
Boris books, RVs, campsites campsites, just 10 miles north. Welcome to the Hotel California.
Talking about this story that I tell in the book about when I came to know that we really, all of us, are being guided moment by moment. We just may need a big NOE to realize that. Ty and I were at a campground. We were on tour years ago before I truly trusted my guides. And I'm a voracious reader and had taken at least 10 brand new books. They were in the cabinet over the couch in the RV. I finished one, time to read another. No TV signal, no internet signal, new book. Pull one down off the shelf, start to open it, and my guide says, Boris, that's the Boris part, not that book, the other one. And I said silently, but I want to read this one. He says, no, that one. And so word to everyone, push back once when you get that inner voice, but don't push back twice. I've learned that one the hard way. So most of us have, if I had only listened to my intuition, higher self, guides, doesn't matter who the voice is. If it's helpful, follow it.
If I'm doing training on the bike or running or something like that, and I ask, maybe I'm starting to feel sore, a niggle in a foot or something, I'll ask, do I continue? And I listen to that answer, but I don't necessarily heed it. If I start to even ask it the second time, I turn around.
Good boy.
you
who has had more than your share of accidents learned that lesson the hard way. Wow. So I got that other book down. I had not opened it, hadn't looked at it since I bought these 10 books for the trip. This was 2,600 miles earlier. I bought the book months earlier. Yeah. And he says, turn to the back, turn to the back cover. He says, inside the back cover. That's how clear it was. I turn inside the back cover. There's a picture of a place we visited the day before. And I looked down at the bottom, and it was an announcement about this retreat center that was 10 miles up the road where we were going to be driving directly past the next day. So, of course, we had to go. Clearly, I'm being guided there. And that's the Hotel California part. I'll condense this. We went in, and at first it was like, oh my gosh, I was guided here. And the farther we got into this place, the more my skin started to crawl. Even Ty, who's not overly sensitive, was like, this doesn't feel good to me. And we just exited stage left. I was almost afraid we wouldn't be allowed to leave.
Oh my God.
It had a terrible feel to it. And we got back to the RV and headed out. And I looked at Ty. I said, I got to talk to Boris. He said, yes, please find out what that was all about. And it was profound, Michael. I just dropped into a meditative state as we're bumping down the road. And I said, Boris, why did you lead me there? It was so clearly led. I mean, 2,600 miles. And he has me pull out that book the night before we're going by the place. And he said, in what is now very obvious, we wanted you to know we, your guides, everybody's guides, know exactly where you are every moment and where you're going in the next few moments. Up to a point, then we make our choices and we can go astray until the guides gently bring us back. That was number one. I mean, literally know where we are and where we're going. And then number two, he said, if you look at some of those other books in your cabinet, they were going a little bit too far out. They were getting into some unusual topics that if you go in any metaphysical store, you'll see some stuff, woo-woo is relative, right?
Yes.
And there's some things that
and you and I are quite grounded.
Yeah. And he said, your path as a spiritual teacher is to teach only love. Stick to that. And that night we got to the campground. I got a green hefty bag. I went up and I gave each book the yes/no test, and the ones that got a no went in the trash. As much as I revere books, I threw out books that were not aligned only with love.
Wow. So last question before we go into where people can find everything is, what do you mean life is love in full expression?
That's another acronym, just life. The word life is itself an acronym. We're here for life. We are life itself. But what is life? It's love in full expression. And we're just blessed. We are blessed to be aware of this. My little dog Nellie is just a bundle of joy. Her little boy Rusty just loves being all boy and rolling around. They are love and expression, but they don't know it. We can have this awareness. Some people who haven't yet realized who they are not joy-filled and peaceful. But as we come to know we are love, meaning total connection, lack of separation, we are that total wholeness in full expression. Because we have the ability to come to know that, that comes with a little bit of responsibility to share it with others. And once you come to that realization, you can't help but share it, because it feels so darn good to align with our true nature.
So I often tell Hannah Bear, because she's very strong and very aware and very on and on it goes for being 23 months old. And I often tell her, with power comes responsibility. I think I'm going to switch or add to it. With love comes responsibility.
Yeah.
I love that. So, Suzanne, where can people go to find your work, to find your retreats, to find your cruises, to find everything, to find your book, The Awakened Way, and find out mediumship, everything you have to offer?
Well, we try to put most of the most important, relevant things on the homepage of SuzanneGiesemann.com. Featured events right under the funny banner at the top with pictures of me being myself. And under that, direct links to where to get the book and find out information about the cruise and the podcast, the weekly podcast, and hundreds of videos, especially the video at the top. Spend some time checking it out, because I have so many resources and a lot of gifts. I would give away a lot of things and love to do that. So check that out.
2 last questions. First off, the first time your image went off, was it 333? And I've been playing with angel numbers lately. We're putting out an angel number program ourselves. 333 to means creativity at the highest level. It's you and it's spirit, and it's what you can create together. And I'm wondering what that means to you.
Well, that means what we have been doing here for the past hour and a half, Michael. We are not isolated beings. We live and work and flow in relationship. So threes appear throughout the universe in wondrous ways, mind, body, spirit, right? The Trinity, and so many Trinities, meaning that, yes, we are one, but in manifestation in threes, we flow together and create synergy, something even more beautiful.
Woohoo! Any last words of wisdom you want to share today, Suzanne?
It comes back to the way my guides end every one of their daily messages, just like we talked about earlier. You are so very loved. And I believe it is the lack of awareness of this that is causing the pain and chaos in our world right now. One of the prayers my guides gave me was, forgive me for ever thinking I was anything less than love. That's where mistakes come from. That's where conflict comes from. So as we forgive ourselves and become love in full expression, we'll see less chaos in our personal lives, and our world will reflect that.
One could use that now. Thank you so much, Suzanne. This has been beautiful. This has been fun. Superlatives go on and on and on. And I certainly hope to meet up with you on the road, so to speak, this summer. So to wrap things up, so for everyone out there, this is Michael Sandler saying, be well, have fun, recognize the divinity and love that is in you, that is around you, and that is everything about you today. And above and beyond all else, shine bright. Woohoo! How does it get any better than this? Thank you so much.
Oh, it was an honor. It's been a while, Michael, and our synergy is truly beautiful. I appreciate you so much.
Wow, wow, wow. I say that a lot, but I mean it a lot. And I cannot express enough beautiful superlatives for this beautiful, beautiful interview on the Awakened Way with Suzanne Giesemann. How does it get any better than this? And how do we plug even more into that field of love? On that note, if you want to join a group of like-minded, love-hearted individuals and take your journey, your expansion into consciousness to the highest level, come join us at the School of Mystics. We've got the link down below. We meet 4 weeks a month, 4 Wednesdays a month, that is, or you can do it on recording as well, plus clearings, plus attunements, plus guided meditations, on and on it goes. It's that link down below. If you simply want to raise your vibration up, 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 and way up, then get the Daily Woohoo newsletter. It's daily, WOOHOO.com. It's free. It comes out of my automatic writing, and I help bring your energy up each and every day. That's Daily Woohoo. There's the link there, dailywoohoo.com. Of course, if you want to learn automatic writing and how to connect with your angels, with your guides, with your A-team as well, simply go to automatic writing. That's that link right there, automaticwriting.com. Plus, we have live classes each and every month to make it the simplest, easiest way to communicate with your angels and guides on the other side of the veil. Here's a link to the next amazing show. Love you so, so much, and keep on shining bright. Woohoo! How does it get any better than this? Lots of love there.